Hello students, today we are going to discuss classes again in detail. As we know that C++ supports classes, and this is what makes C++ an object-oriented language. In C we don't have classes. Now, classes are user defined data types. That is, the classes can be used to create new data types by the programmer, and then we can create the objects of those data types that have been created by the programmer. That is why classes are called as user defined data types. So classes act as templates. Templates are used in industry. For example, when you want to manufacture a particular part, we use vessels, and in those vessels we put the molten iron. Once the molten iron solidifies, it takes the shape of that vessel. So that vessel acts as a template. In short, templates in industry are vessels in which if we put any material in the molten form, and once it solidifies, it takes the shape of that vessel. So similarly, classes act as templates. Once we create classes and then we create objects of type classes, the objects inherit all the properties of that class from which they are declared. So classes act as templates. Classes are also called as abstract data types, because by abstract data type we mean they act as mathematical models, or they act as models for creating new data types. Then once we create the new data types, we can create objects of those data types. The word classes actually comes from biology. There are many words used in C++ that have their origin in biological sciences. Like we have inheritance, we have polymorphism, we have encapsulation, and we have classes. These are basically terms used in biology to indicate different biological phenomena. Similarly, classes comes from biology, because in biology, botany and zoology, they do classification of the plants and animals, and based on the features shared by the particular group of plants, that is placed into one class. Similarly, the features shared by particular group of organisms or animals, they are put into one class. Like mammals are there, arthropods are there, mollusks are there, etc., etc. These are put into classes because they have certain features that are common among those organisms. So classes basically comes from classification. This was to give you a bit idea, because in the classes of C++, what we do, we have objects, and those objects have certain attributes or features or properties or data structure that is common among them. Let us take an example of a student class. In student, we have every student has different fields that are common for all the students, like their name, their age, their class, their institution in which they study, their roll number. Every student has these fields, so we put students into a class student, and different what you call students share the properties, and they are put into the class student. Similarly, we can have class employee. Different people who work in an organization have certain fields in common, and those people can be put into class employee. Okay. But this does not only work for people. This concept works for mathematical concepts or anywhere where you can use it. Basically, class is a tool and you can use this tool anywhere, and class allows us to keep logically related data and the operations that can be performed on that data in one module. By operations we mean functions or methods or behavior. Okay, so the concept of the class is seen in the real world also, and in order to solve the problems of the real world we have the classes concept in C++. Okay, now if we take another example of a class, for example we have complex numbers. All the complex numbers can be placed in one class since they have certain set of properties that are common for all of them. Now this complex number, every complex number rather, has got two parts. One is the real part and one is the imaginary part. That is the data part of it. Then we can perform different operations on the complex numbers like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So we can say all the complex numbers belong to one class, and there are certain operations or behavior or methods or functions that can be performed on them. Now you can also represent a state of a system through a class. Suppose you are studying physical system and you are making note of certain what you call physical quantities in it, like temperature, volume, pressure, etc. Then you can store those values in the objects of that class, suppose class system, in which we have got certain data members and certain functions. Now the values of these data members can determine the state of system, because as the physical quantities change, we say the system state of the system also changes. So it can be applied in physics or chemistry or biology or whichever field you choose. But the concept here is actually that you are able to place a logically related data into one group, and you can place the operations that can be performed on that data within that group only, and that group makes the class. Then set of the objects share the features of that class which are created from it. Now what are the steps for using a class? First is the definition of the class. This is what we have already discussed in structures. Same steps are here. That is definition of a class, then declaring or creating variables of a class. We don't call variables here, we call it as objects of a class, and the objects of a class are called as instance of a class, and declaring the variables or objects of a class is called class instantiation. Now one more thing is initialization of the class, but this is optional. Once you create the class variables, you can initialize them at the point of declaration. This we have seen in structures. Same way it can be done in classes, and I have shown it there also now in that video. Now fourth step is accessing the class members. We will discuss these steps, and now onwards we will be focusing mostly on classes and objects, and the same argument can be applied to structures and structure variables. There is no difference between a structure and a class, except that classes are created with class keyword, structures are created with struct keyword. All the members of the class by default are private, and all the members of the structure by default are public. Now we call the variables of a class as objects, and for the variables of structures we call as structure variables. We say object is an instance of a class, okay, but it is one and the same thing. It behaves exactly same as a structure variables. Now I am talking about concept of the structures in C++, not in C, because in C we have structures that support only data members, they don't support functions. Once we move to C++, we have got structures that support both data and code into one unit, what we call as encapsulation. Okay, now let us go for the first step. The first step is always the definition of a class. Now how do we define a class? Now every class has got two members. one is data members, and in different books they are called as properties or attributes or data structure. You should note it that they are one and the same. For data members we can use terms like properties, attributes and data structure. Mostly we use data members. Now other members of the class are function members. They are also called as methods or behavior or operations. Now data members can be of following types, either static or automatic. Now static data members are those data members in which only one copy is created and that copy is shared by all the objects of that class. In case of automatic data members, a separate copy is created for of a data member is created for each object, and each object has its own copy of that data member. Now we will be using automatic data members, and I'll give example of static data member also, and that way once we go into IDE it will be clear what are static and automatic. But you remember one thing, for automatic the data members, the copy of the data members exists separately for each object, but in case of static data members a shared copy is used by all the objects. Now whether the data members are static or automatic, they can be created from primitive data types like character, integer, float or double, or derived data types, that is arrays and pointers, or they can be of type user defined data types, that is they can be of type classes or structures, and then we can have arrays and pointers of the structures and classes also as the members of the class. We will see this also in the detail in IDE. Now what is a member function and non-member function? Once we have got a function that is defined within the class, we call it as a member function. All the functions which do not belong to that class are called as non-member functions, whether they belong to a other class in which they are defined, or they exist independently in a C++ program. Now defining member functions outside the class, we can equally define member functions, that is the functions that belong to a class within the class or outside the class. There is a method for doing that, and for that we use a scope resolution operator. I will show you that in the IDE also. Now having members inside or outside the class hardly makes a difference, but they are class members. Okay, so in short we have got two types of members of the class. One is the data members and one is the what you call function members. Now data members are used to store the data inside the object, and function members are used to do different operations on the data that is stored in the object, okay, or some other operations as well. Not necessarily it will perform operations on the data that is stored within the class. That is not a necessary thing. Okay, now having the code and data, now that is data members and function members in a single class is what we call as encapsulation. Encapsulation, as I told you, this term comes from the biology itself, botany. We have got a capsule in which we have spores. Now here we have got a code block in which we have got code and data, that is we have got a class definition, and inside the class definition we have got function, that is the code, and we have got data members. Okay, now members of the class by default are private. This we have already discussed previously in previous videos. Okay, now how do we create or declare variables? Let us understand this first. Now once we create or declare variables, that is the objects of a class, this is called a class instantiation. Now objects can be of two types. We can have objects, that is class variables, which are local or they are global. Now global objects can be accessed anywhere but only their public part. Okay, whether the public members or public members, that is data or function members. But since private and protected part cannot be accessed, whether the objects are local or they are global. Now memory can be allocated to all data members of class for each object separately or once and that is shared by all objects. Now for data members, usually the memory is allocated to all the members that we have seen so far. That is what I call as separately. That is separately for each object. Okay, that is the for data members of a particular class. Once we create the objects, a separate data member is created for all objects, or we can have only one copy of that data member, and that is shared by all objects. This is what we call as static data. Okay, now here is the example class in which I have got a data member int a, and I have got another member where I am using a keyword static. Okay, this is a special keyword that informs the compiler that this data B is shared by all the objects, so only one copy will be created. You kindly note it here, and you will see once I will show the memory representation of this class, you will understand. Okay, now I have got a one data member, that is A, that is shared by the copy of it is created for all the objects. If we declare the data member as static, it has only one copy of it is created, and that is shared by all the objects. Okay, if we don't declare data member as a static, then it is called as an automatic member, and in case of automatic member, the data copy is created for, or the data member is created for every object. Okay, now again we don't use a static keyword here, so therefore this data member is also an array of integer, and a separate copy of it will be created for each object. Now I have got character array also. This is also not a static word, data member. All the data variables that have been created here are of primitive data type. Okay, and derived data type. A is primitive because it's an integer, B is again an integer, but here the static keyword has got a special significance. This tells that this is the static data, and this is to be shared by all the objects, so only one copy of this will be created. I'll show you in the compiler also how this is shared. Now, in the IDE. Now, if we have got a character array and integer array, they are of derived data types, because integers and character arrays are derived data types. Now we have got three types of data types available in C. One is primitive, one is user defined, and one is derived. In derived data types we have got arrays and pointers. Now we have got two function members of this, what you call this class. So one is the sum and one is the difference. So this class example has got four data members, 1, 2, 3, 4. Two are the integers, and one is the integer array, and another is a character array, that is name. Now it has got two functions defined inside the class body. Where from does the class body start? From the curly brace, this starting curly brace and the ending curly brace, where you have got a semicolon. Okay, then you have got two functions. If you see, two functions are completely defined within this class definition, therefore they are function members of the class. Okay, now this function is again a member function of the class. Okay, so this class has got two members functions. First step is always defining the class. After that we create the class variables. Now I have created three objects, that is O1, O2 and O3 of this example data type, since the name of the class is example. If you see, I have given name of the class as example. So example is a user defined data type, or abstract data type, or a template. Through this template I will be creating different objects which will be inheriting the properties of the example. Inheriting the properties of an example means whatever structure I have defined for the example, that will be inherited by them, and they will be able to access the functions in the class with the help of dot operator. Now dot operator can be used to access the data members as well as function members of a particular class. We have also shown that earlier. Now let us see how memory is allocated to the class. Now we have created three objects of class example. If you see, I had got four members. One was A, one was num, and one was name, and one was B. If you see here again, I have got one is A, one is B, one is num, and one is name. So this class had got four data members. So example is a class, and I have created three objects of type example. Note, these are not declarative statements. These are simply the statements to show what should exist within the objects, how the objects will be created out of the example. That is, once you create an object, we should have one member in the object as A, which should be an integer, and we should have another member object as b, we should be a static member, and we should have another member that is a array, integer array of 10 elements, and we should have another member name of 10 elements, we should have character type, and we should have two functions. So these are not declarative statements. Don't ever consider these as a declarative statement. So no memory is allocated for these members. Of course, this is an exception for static members, because now static members can be data or static members can be functions. What are static functions? That I'll take separately, but right now you remember that static data is the data and its copy is shared by all the objects. Now if you see the memory representation, you see for B a single copy is created. Okay, so B is created only once, since it's just static data. Okay, so static data, only one copy is created, whether you declare array as a static or integer as a static or character variable as a static or float variable as a static or double variable as a static, only one copy will be created and all the objects will be using this copy. Now if you see the other members, that is a, num and name, a separate copy in a memory is created for every object. Now since I told you classes are used to group logically related data into one unit, and this is called encapsulation also, because we have got n functions as well. Now if you see for object O1, we have got three members created in memory. That is, memory will be allocated for a, num and name for O1, and a, num and name for O2, and a, num and name. So this array is created three times separately for each object. Same way, num is created separately for each object, and a is created separately for each object. Now the data member that is created separately for each object, that is called as an automatic data member, and data member that is created only once and that copy is shared by all the objects, that is called as a static data member. I hope you have understood. This is simply to give a facility to the user where so now let us take an example of a student. Now every student, suppose he belongs to the same college, why should we have a name of a college separately stored in each object? Why don't we have a shared member that stores the name of a college? Because college name will be same for a student. Once I am designing the system for a particular college. Okay, now if you see, there are two functions in this what you call class, and for these two functions they are set of instructions, and the lines of codes for both these functions, as we have seen in function linkage also, the functions are independent blocks of code and their lines of code are separately stored. And if you see in this case, we have got two blocks here. One is the block for the sum and one is block for the difference, but only one copy of the functions is created. But for data members, separate copy is created for automatic members for each object, and for static members only one copy is created, and for functions we have got a single copy that will be shared by all objects. Now all objects will be accessing their data members. Now data members of O1 are a, num and name. Now a, num and name cannot be accessed individually. This is the difference that makes it different from the primitive variables. Now basically they are primitive variables. A is a primitive variable, num is a same, it will num will function same as the arrays, as a integer arrays, and name will function same as the character arrays, but the name of a of this particular object will be o1.a, and for this memory location actually name would be num. Now the name will be o1.num. So for each object a separate name is created for each member, because we cannot have this memory location with same variable names. Now for this a, actually we have a name o3.a, that makes a unique name for a of o3, and we have for this a we have o2.a, so that is again a unique name for a of o2. And now for o1 we have a name as o1.a. that is why we use member operator and the object object name to identify a particular member, so that each member has got the separate what you call name, in case it's an automatic member. Now in case of a shared member, the B has the name o1.b, o2.b and o3.b. Now B will be created only once. This is true of static members. Now after this, how do we access the members of a class? We'll see that later. Let us do the programming exercise on the first part that we learned. Okay. Okay, here. Okay. Now we have got a file cpp5. Let us see how we define a class. Okay, now I can have a class, say class X. I'll take an example class and to show you the different features that are supported by classes. Okay, now if I create a data here, int ap pri, okay, then I create int a pro, then I create int a public. Okay, now as I told you, by default all the members of this class are private. Okay, let me create an object of this class. Okay, I say X and I create object 1. Okay, now this is a global object. Why it's a global object? Because this object has not been created in the body of any functions. Since global variables are not declared, that is those variables are not declared within a function, they are declared outside the function. So their declarative statements are not part of any function's body. So since I have declared O1 outside the function, and we have got only one function in our what you call program, that is main. Now I want to access O1. I will say O1 dot a pro, say a prime equal to, say 10. Can I access it? This is a question. Now kindly note it, I am accessing the member of a class. I cannot access it independently. So this class had got 3 data members and all the 3 are integers. Okay, now if I am accessing a pri, that is accessing means accessing, since a pri is a variable, accessing a variable means using it in assignment statements or inputting it through as cin or displaying it through cout. This is accessing a variable. Now note who is actually accessing the variable. Basically we are accessing the variable, so or a data member within the main. So it is actually main who is accessing. Okay, and accesses will be always through the object. Okay, but this is important thing, who is accessing the a prime member of object O1? It is actually main who is accessing. So actually the object members, data members, are accessed by some functions in their body. So accesses to data members are made in the body. Equally this is true of variables. Whenever you will be accessing a variable of type int character double, you will be accessing that in the body of a function, because suppose I declare a variable int s. So why do you access it? Within the main. You have declared it within the main, and even if you make it global, you can only access it within the main, because I have told you that declarative statements can, or the only statements that can exist outside the body of the function. Other statements, that is conditional, iterative, assignment, unconditional, they exist within the body of a function. Okay, they exist within the body. They cannot exist or they cannot be written. What I mean by exist, they cannot be written outside the body of the functions. Only statements that can be written out of the body of the function as well within the body of the functions are declarative statements. Okay, so whenever you will be using an assignment statement, input output statement, you see I cannot write c in outside the main here. Suppose I try here c in s or k, and I have declared a global variable. I can declare a global variable here, int k. Okay, I can declare global. Can I access k here? Let us see what compiler says. There's an error. What is the error? Declaration syntax error. This is on line 15. You cannot use input output statement or assignment statement or conditional statement or unconditional statement or iterative statement outside the body of functions. These statements are to be written within the body of function. This is very important. Only statements that you can use, that is, once you cannot write assignment statements and input output statements outside the body of a particular function, that means that the function will be actually accessing a particular function while you are writing those statements, will be accessing a variable or an object data member or an object function or a structure variable or structure what you call member function. Now, who is accessing? My point here was, who is actually accessing the O dot A prime? It is being accessed in the body of main. So I can say main is accessing the A prime data member of object O1 through the statement O1 dot A prime. Why we are using O1? Because data members don't exist separately. They exist as a group and they have a group name, and through that group name you can access them. What is the group name? That is the object name, a particular object. If I create a second object, say here, I can create a second object. Sorry, I have deleted an important statement here. I can create x of O1 comma O2. Now I have created two objects. Now how do I access the A prime of what you call O2? It will have a separate name, O2 dot A prime. Since I have got three members inside the class X, that is A prime, A pro, A pub. These are three variables. Now these three variables are automatic because I'm not using a keyword static. So a separate copy is created for O1, separate copy is created for O2, and I can access that copy, a separate copy, through O1 or O2, their respective members, using a dot operator. But my point is where I am accessing right now. I am accessing within a main. So there is always a function which is trying to access the data member of a particular object through a or a structure variable, through a assignment statement or a input statement or an output statement. I hope this is clear. Now main is trying to access this member. Since this member is private, because all the members of the class by default are private. Now if I see, I will compile this. Let us see what happens. Since I am accessing a private member, what does it say? A prime is not accessible. So A prime is not accessible. Now how can we make it accessible? We have to make this variable as public. This is a keyword called as access_specifier public. Once I make this A prime as public, how do I make it public? You precede all the what you call all the data members that you want to make public. You precede it with a public keyword. Once I have written public, this public now applies to A prime, A pro, and A pub. Suppose I want to make A pro as protected member. I'll say protected. I can use public, protected, and private keywords, that is access specifiers, as many times as I want. So it is not only once. So I can use a public again here, okay? But I will be using, say, private here, okay? Now this public tells that whenever I will be using creating an object, I can access A prime because it is public. Public means it's a public property. It can be accessed in any function now, okay? But of course through the object or with a pointer, that we'll see later. Now, or with a reference. These are the three types of accesses. Now protected means that now this cannot be accessed in any function, and A public is now a private, so it cannot be accessed. Let me take another example where I choose the public again. Some public, suppose, as I told you, public, private, and protected access specifier can be used as many times as you want. Now whatever lies between the first public word and the protected keyword, since public is at the top, whatever lies in between them will be treated as public, whether that is a function number or data number. Now whatever exists exists after once you have written protected keyword here, whatever data member or function member will be after this, till the next access specifier, that will be treated as protected. Okay, now int pub will be private and float will be public. This I simply showed that you can use access specifier as many times as you want. We have got three types of access specifiers. One is public, and one is protected, and one is private. The variables, that is data members and the function members, which have got access specifier as public, can be accessed by any non-member function. Now another word I use, non-member function. Is main defined within the class X? No, the definition of the main exists outside the class. Therefore main is a non-member function for every class, because it won't be enclosed in a class. Okay, for fully object oriented languages like Java, we have got main within the class also. But since in C++ main does not belong to any class, therefore you treat any function that is not defined within a class as a non-member function of that class. Okay, so main is a non-member function. What it is trying to do, it is trying to access the a-pri of O1. Now what is the access specifier of a-pri? Now a-pri has an access specifier as public. Okay, so let me keep the name of this as, if I change the name of this, because I gave name actually to designate that this is a public member, so I can make this now as a-pro. Now sorry, a-pri, that is private. This is, I am simply naming it so that you remember it. Now for public I have given access specifier as public, for a-pro I have given access specifier as protected, and a-pri I have given access specifier as private. We have seen that we can access now a public. This will not give errors. Okay, now let us try to access the protected member through an object. Now where I am accessing, once again I am accessing in a main. Okay, I'll try to access a-pro. I'll try to access both members, that is okay. Now let us compile it and see what happens. What is the error? A-pro is not accessible. Because why is not a-pro accessible? Because its access specifier is protected. Why is not a-pri accessible? Because its access specifier is private. Okay, now let us do other types of accesses. Suppose I say C in a-pro. Now I am trying to input a key value from the keyboard and store it in a-pro, since a-pro is o1.a-pro is a integer actually. Okay, now I'll say cout. This is simply to clarify that what types of accesses we can perform to a variable, that I have taken in detail in videos that I have already loaded. If you don't understand this, kindly go through those videos and you will understand. Now see here what happens. You have errors. What is the error? A-pro is not accessible, and so this statement is again an input statement, this statement is a output statement, and before this I used the assignment statement. So private and protected cannot be accessed, that is they cannot be used in input statements, output statements, or assignment statements, either in left hand side or right hand side. So you can, no non-member function can access it. This is a rule for non-member functions. As I told you, non-member functions are those functions which are not defined within a class. Okay, now this was the important point, that main was trying to access the members. It can only access the public members, it cannot access the protected or private members. Can we overcome this? Yes, there is a concept called friends functions in C++ that we'll see later, when we make a particular function a friend of a particular class, and then that friend can access even private and protected property of that class. Now I call private and protected property. By that I mean those data members and function members which have the access specifier private or protected. So public property is a common word that we use in day-to-day life, and that is accessible to all people, and protected property is accessible to specific people as well as private property. Now what is difference between protected and private? Private and protected, they are similar in one respect, that they cannot be accessed by any non-member function. Okay, now protected has got special significance once we have got inheritance. Okay, once we have got inheritance feature, that time protected will be clear. Okay, now let us declare functions within the X also. So I create first function, say void fun1, then I call this fun1 as fun1 pub. Since it is in the public, it has got a public specifier. I have given the definition of this function here, that is in the public section. Okay, now I define another function. I'll copy the same function. Okay, now we can have two functions with the same name within a class. That is overloading, that we have already discussed, that functions with the class can be overloaded. Let me change the name of this. I will not overload it. Fun1 pro. Okay, now there I declare another function here in the private section, that is fun1 private. Okay, no. So I have not written any what you call statements within these functions. These are simply to indicate that these functions have a null body, but this is the structure of the function, and this is a definition. This can be taken as a definition of a function even if the body is empty. Okay, let us compile it and see what it says. Okay, it's a success. So function definition is complete even if the body is null. Now we have got three functions in this. One is private, one is protected, and one is private protected, and we have got one public. Fun1 pub is a public function, and all the three are member functions because their definition is within the class. Now I say something like this. Now I try to access these functions. I have shown you access of data members. Now accessing a function means calling a function, but you cannot call this function independently because it is again a part of the class, and it can be only called through the object, but only one copy of the function will exist. Now these objects are global objects. Let me create some local objects within the main. So this clarifies again, we have got local objects. So O3 is a local object. Why? Because it has been declared within the main. Okay, so O1 and O2 are global objects. I told you the objects whose declarative statements, because this is same as a declarative statement. We have got a user defined data type followed by what you call variable names or object names. Okay, then we have again got a user defined data type, that's X, since the name of the class is, if you see here, X. Okay, so X is a user defined data type. The name of the class acts as a data type. Now you can access data members, but only those members which are public, not private and protected. This rule applies to non-member functions. Once we have got member functions, let us see what is the rule there. Okay, now we have got O3. I will call a function with it, that is dot fun1 public. I'll see if I can call this function. What does the compiler say? Success. This call is allowed. So the compiler will tell you whether the call is allowed or not, whether the access can be performed to the function, or whether the access can be performed to the data member. But C++ is more of a rules than of a programming techniques. So you have to remember these rules, and it is very important. Now very easy to remember. So public function can be called. That's a function that is a public member can be called. Since if you see fun1 pub is after the public keyword, so its access is of type public. Now public, private and protected are keywords that designate the access specifier. Access specifier tells us whether we can access a data member or a function member within a non-member function or not. Okay, this is what it means. Okay, now if I call now o3 dot fun1 pro, since it's a protected function, so let us see what happens. If I compile, the compiler responds like this: pro is not accessible. Why not accessible? Because it is a function with the access specifier protected. So functions which have got access specifier protected cannot be called from other non-member functions. Okay, now let us see the rule that applies to member function. Now f1 pry is a member function. Okay, can we access the data? Now for member functions there are no rules. They can access all the data that exists within them. Now in the data that exists in this class is apub, aproint, which is of integer type, and apry. Let me try to access all these three here. Now within the class we don't use object name. We simply access it directly. This is another difference. Within a non-member function, access to the class members have to be made through the object or through a pointer. But in member functions, you don't make access through the object. You access it directly. Okay, you can say apro is equal to 10. I am accessing apro. I say apry is equal to 10. Okay, I am accessing it. Accessing, you know now. I can say cin a pub. Since f1 pry, the definition of f1 pry exists within the class and it is a member function of a class, so let us see how compiler responds to it. Okay, there are what are the errors? Illegal structure operation. Let us. Oh, for this I have to give a write operator, that is this operator. That's the extraction operator. Now here I am making a wrong access. This access cannot be done. Why? Because it was a protected function. Okay, so these were the two errors. Once we compile, you see the compilation will be fine. So these three statements are valid. What are these three statements? I am trying to access apro, apry and apub within the member function. So the rule for access specifiers is not applicable to the function members which are the part of a class definition. That is, for member functions we don't have access specifier rules. They can access all the data members that are present in them. Okay, I think this is clear now. Okay, let us try to go back and see what we have learned so far. We have seen how memory is allocated to the objects. Oh, I have to show you static, that I'll show later. Okay, then we have seen access control specifiers. Now access control specifier can be public, private or protected. Any non-member function can access only the public members of the class. Non-member functions are of two types, which are the member functions of other classes and which do not belong to any class. Let us since main comes under category B. Category A we have not discussed. Let us try to see that also. Member function can access all private protected members. This we have also seen. And object with which the member function is accessed is implicit argument to the member function. This I'll explain. I'll give a proper example here and I'll explain. I think it's clear now. Access specifiers are of three types. Non-member functions can access only public members. This is clear. Non-member functions are of two types. Now we have discussed so far what we have discussed, that is type B, that is which do not belong to any class like main. Okay, and we have not discussed which are the member functions of other classes. Since we have seen the member functions which are the functions, member functions of the same class, they can access. Now I am talking here about the member functions of other classes. That means we have a class other than X. Okay, suppose we have class Y. In that we have got data and member functions. Can the member functions of class Y access the data members of class X? This is the special case. Now, access passwords, again they are of three types, that is private, protected and public. Own class members, it can access all the three, but through the objects of the class and non-member functions, private is not accessible, no. Protected is not accessible, no. We have seen in main, and public is accessible. Okay, this we have also seen. Okay, now let us go back to the IDE. Now let me create another non-member function so that it will be clear to you. Okay, now I declare another function, say here int k, or I can say void k. This is the minimum requirement for the function, that is it should have two short braces, a name and a return type, and two curly braces. Now I am trying to access o1 dot a pry init. Okay, since o1 is a global object, I can access it. I can access the data members of this object anywhere. Okay, now if o3 is a local object of the main, as I told you, objects can be local or global. That is, the objects which are declared globally are those whose declarative statements don't exist within a particular function. They exist independently of all the functions. Since O1 is a global object, but I am trying to access its private member, that is a pry. Okay, and if you see, once I compile, what happens? So a pry is not a member of X. Okay, a pry, sorry, I am using a pry 1. I have to give name a pry. I'll see, I compile again. I had given the wrong name, so it's not accessible. Why? Because k is a non-member function, as I told you, in any non-member function. Now k is a non-member function and it does not belong to any class. Okay, we can have some non-member functions. Now I can give you an example right now. Suppose I have class k, okay, or class, I can say y. Okay, I have a member function of this class. Suppose int or void g h or g. This is a member function of this class x. Now class has only one member function, that is h. Okay, let me compile first and see what happens. A press not access is a previous error. We remove it, so we cannot access the what you call private or protected member in any non-member function, because I had given the example of main. Now I gave the example of k, which is also a non-member function, and I have shown that private and protected are not accessible in any non-member function. Now this non-member function was not part of any class. Now I have got a member function of that is h, which is the part of class x. Let us try to access o1 dot a public init. Okay, let us see what it says. This is accessible. Okay, now I have shown you a way out here to explain the other point which I have done right now. That is, if you have got a, now these first three functions, that is function 1 pub, function 1 pro, and function 1 pry, are member functions. Now main is a non-member function which is not a part of any class. Now k is again a non-member function which is not a part of any class. Now this function h, which is a member function of y, is a non-member function for a class x. Okay, this member function, sorry, h, which is of a member of a class y, is a non-member function for class x. This is what I mean by non-member functions of other class. Now non-member function of other class, could it access the public part uh, of an object? Yes. Now let us try to access the private or protected part. We'll use one thing and it will clear. Now H is trying to access the private part of the object O1, and H is a non-member function that belongs to some other class. Okay, so Alt C, there's error. What is that? It's not accessible. So we can make it a point now that public and private and protected members, they are accessible to their function members of a particular class. That is, the public and private and protected members are accessible to their own function members. There is no restriction there. There is no rule of access specifiers there. But for non-member functions, that is the functions which are not the part of the class. Now those functions can exist in other class or they can exist independently, and those functions can access only public part and they cannot access the private or protected part. This is my point, and I have shown you practically that main could access only public part and not private and protected part. So was true of H. It could access only the what you call public part. It could not access private or protected part. Whether it was data or functions, you can try for functions also. Suppose we have got O1 dot function 1 public. Can we call it? Yes, since it's a public function, if you remember. So it's a possible. Now let us try to call the private function. Can we call it? No, we cannot call it. So the non-member function which belongs to other classes cannot access the private or protected members. Once I say members, it means both data and function members of a particular class. I hope it's clear now. I have clarified both points there, point A and point B, which was shown in the slide, without passing the objects. Actually, I have created a way out because I have accessed a global object that can be accessed anywhere. Okay, now see here. Now any non-member functions can access only the public members of a class. Now non-member functions are of two types, which are the member functions of other classes, that was what we have seen, and which do not belong to a class. Example was main and the one function which I declared outside the class. Now in the another class I created a function. What was that function? I don't remember the name. Here it is. Now you can see here. Now main and k, once we tried to access the public part in main and k, it was accessible. Okay, but the private and protected part was not accessible. So these functions are those functions which do not belong to any class. And then we had got a function h which belonged to a class, and the same rule applied there. What was the rule? The rule was that any non-member function can access only the public members of a class. That is, non-member functions are of two types. What are the two types of non-member functions? Which are the members of other classes or which do not belong to any class. Okay, now second rule is that a member function, no restrictions apply to it. It can access all the private and protected and public members of that particular class. Now the important thing which I am going to show after this is that an object with which a member function is accessed is the implicit argument to a member function. This is an important thing, and I will have to show that how we can use a static member. I'll take the last example and I'll clarify in that. Now I have created a class X in which I have a public member, a pub, and I create a member S as a static int. Okay. Now as I told you, there are two types of data members. One is automatic and one is static. Automatic members are the members in which a separate copy for that data member will be created for all the objects, but for static members a single copy will be created for all the objects, and that copy will be shared by all the objects. Okay, let us have this class only data members. It is possible that class will have data members only, or class will have function members only, or class can have both members only, or even the class can be empty. Okay, I can have empty classes. So suppose class, so this class definition is also possible. Let us see what the compiler says. Okay, there's an error. Because I have not given the class name. Okay, I give the class name as key and compile. Again there's an error. Since I have removed all the functions, so I need to remove this one also. Okay, now you see this is okay. Okay, now I have got a class X, and it has got two members, and a class K. It does not have any member. The classes which don't have any members are called empty classes. And once we start doing our projects, there are some classes we know that they should be created, and we simply define them, and we don't have the idea about their data members and the function members. So initially we create empty classes. Such empty classes are called as stubs. That is the classes which don't have any members, that is function members and data members. Okay, now let us go back to the class X. So the class X has got two members, that is a public member and another public member as S. But the speciality of this member is that it is static. Okay, for static members you have to initialize them outside the class. How do you do? You write the int, don't write as static, then write S. Since S does not have an individual existence, it belongs to a class, so you have to use a scope resolution operator. You will say that S of X. This means this is S is the number of X, and I want to initialize that to a value 90. Okay, let us compile and see if it works. Okay, this works. No, S is a static number and its value has been initialized to 90. Let us create three objects or two objects of this class. I'll say X is my class. I create object O1 dot O1 comma O2 comma O3. Okay, O3. Now let me watch. Okay, I add watch to my O1. Okay, and add watch O2. Also I add watch 3. Now I have got three objects. Let me access the members within the main. Since S is the public member and a public is also a public member, so I can access all the members. Okay, now let me remove this. I have already created the object with the name O3. I will now say O1 dot a pub is equal to 10. Okay, then I say O2 dot a pub is equal to 11. Then I will say O3 dot a pub is equal to 12. And I say O1 dot S O1 dot S is equal to 12. Okay, then O2 dot S is equal to 12. Sorry, I can take it 13. Then O3 dot S equal to 14. So if you see that I have created three objects, and one member of that object, of the classes data member is automatic, and one is the static. So these static and automatic applies to both data members and function members. I told you function members, I'll be talking about static function members later. Okay, Now let us compile this or run this and see what happens. Now see, I have got object O1, and if you see here, it is showing me only dot apub, its value is 10, O2 dot apub, its value is 11, and O3 dot apub, its value is 12. Okay, it's not showing me the static member, it's only showing me those members which are automatic, even though if you see this class has got 2 members. Let me try to, I have not tried it, let me try it. That I will watch x of x is my data of s. So it shows yes c. So here I have got a static member s, and that has been initialized to 90. Okay, I told you only one copy of this member will exist, and this copy will be shared by all the objects. So s will be the data member of all the objects, but with only one copy. So whatever object makes changes to this copy, it will be applied to all objects. This indicates that it is a shared object. Okay, sorry, shared data member. Now see here, if you see here, I am at step. Now I change O1.s to 12. That means I am accessing s with 12. Initially the value is 19. Now if you see, s has changed it to 12. Now I say O2.s is equal to 13. So it has changed it to 13. Now if I try to print O1.s, it will be 13. Okay, now you see, so it is 14. So all the objects access the same copy, and the changes, let us see if they are reflected in. Now if I change O1.s, let me say cout O1 O2 dot s. Okay, if O2 dot s has become 12, that means O1 dot s and O2 dot s is same. Let me print here now. I can print, I could have equally printed O3 dot s there. Cout okay, I am changing O2 dot s, and here I print out I can use the end line here. Handle is used to transfer the cursor to the next line. I have not used it so far. So now if you see, once I run the program, see what happens. Let us, we know this is now see here, s is 12. Initially s was 90. I think I have given the value 90. Yes, so it changes to 12. So who changes s to 12? I changed s to 12 through O1. Okay, now but I am now printing O2.s. If O2.s is 12, after this is an indication that O1.s and O2.s are a single copy. Okay, if you see here, it is 12, so it's a single copy. Next, now I change O2 dot of s to 13, but I print O1.s. If O2.s is changed to 13, let us see the value of O1.s. It is 13 now. The first one was 12. That is the previous change that we made. Now I have changed it to 14, and you will see it is 14. So this is a clear-cut indication that s is a shared copy. That is, this variable is allocated only once. Now suppose there is one more concept related to it. Suppose I have not created any objects yet, so the class does not have any objects. Okay, how do I know that class does not have any objects? Because I have not created, I have only created a class. Okay, I have created all the statements where I created the objects. Okay, Let me delete the class K also. Now, as I told you, unless we create an object, the memory for the data members is not allocated. But this is not true of the static members. If you see for static members, we can access them even before the objects are created. So suppose I say cin, but for that it should be a public member. Cin x of, I use a scope resolution operator to specify x. I have not created object, I am simply accessing s with a class name. Okay, because we can have many s's, we can have s's in more than one classes. So how do we know which s we are accessing of which class? So you are accessing the s with the scope resolution operator. Let me do it again and see it. If so, the compilation is working. I am able to input the s also, and if you see, I give the value 78. The 78 is the value of s of s, x of s, but I have accessed s even before the creation of the what you call the object or declaring an object. So you can remember that for the static data members, the memory is allocated even before the creation of the objects, and static data members, but for automatic data members, the memory is allocated once we create objects. You cannot access them. See, if I had something like apub, could I access it? Cin x of a, well, this is the data member of x. Can I access it? Let us compile and see. There's the error. What is the error? apub cannot be used without an object. So for automatic members, you need to declare objects, then only memory will be allocated to them. This is an exception rule for static data members. So we have got data members of two types. One is automatic and one is static. Automatic members are created only when you have created the objects, but static members are created even before the creation of the objects. And static members, for the static members, a single copy is shared by all the objects, and if any of the objects make changes to that single copy, the change is reflected in the members of all the objects because there's a single copy. But in case of automatic data members, since there's a separate copy for each object, if you make a change with the object O1 say to a particular automatic data member, that change will be reflected in that object only. Okay, this is what we call, and this is all about static data members. Now we had one more concept, that is, how do I what you call, now I have got a member function, say suppose void of x, void of j. Okay, it is accessing my member, say apub equal to 10. Okay, this is an important concept. Kindly focus on this, very important concept. Once I am accessing the public member of the class within the class member function only. Now let us create the objects of this class. Say x, I create an object o1 comma o2 comma o3. Okay, if I say o1 dot, let us say, suppose here this, that will be more clear, cin apub. As I told you, once we access the data members within the class, we don't use the object name here. We simply of that class, we simply use what you call that data member directly provided. the object is not passed to the function. Let us see what this apub refers to. Okay, now o1 dot, I say what's the name of the function has given, I'll say j. I'm giving a simple example here so that it will be clear. So I say o2 dot j, then I say o3 dot j. It's an interesting phenomenon. Now we are calling the function thrice. We are accessing the same function but with different objects. Okay, it is possible object of a particular class can access its own data members provided they are public from any non-member functions, and it can call any function provided it is public, okay, in a non-member function. Now let us execute it, I think. And now see here, I am calling o1.j. Very important phenomenon, you watch it. o1 o2 watch it, o3. Okay, now you close the message window there, and here you are. Now we have got three objects, that is o1, o2 and o3, and o1, o2 and o3. Okay, now they have got junk values for their data members. What are the data members? Since it is showing only one value, because we have got only one data member, and that member is a integer. Okay, now I am calling j with o1. Okay, so my reference object I'll call as is o1, and I input apub. Okay, suppose 890. This apub is of o1. This is what I want to say. This apub is of o1. Now we have got o1.apub, o2.apub, and o3.apub. The moment I call the function with the object and refer to the data members within the function, at that time I am referring, means I can or access the data members within a member function. At that time I am referring to its data members. This is the point. Now if you see, o1 has got value changed of apub changed to 890. Why? Because once I called o1.j, in that I am inputting the apub, and this was actually now o1.apub. So you can understand that whenever you call a member function with a particular object, and if you access the data members of the class at that time, those data members will belong to that object. This is my point. Kindly note it. Now next time I am calling with o2. Now apub should refer this value, that is 990, which I am inputting. Okay, if you see here, once I return, o2's apub has changed to 990. o1's of apub is 890. This is because of the first call. Now o2.j has made the value of apub as 990 because we are inputting apub there. So whatever members you will be referring to in this call, they will refer to that object. Now if I'm third call, I say 190. Now this time I'm calling, sorry, 190. This time I'm calling the function with reference to o3. So you see o3's data member has changed. This is an important observation, and you should note it that whenever you call a member function, and at that time if you access the data members, you are referring to the data members of that object with which you have called the member function. You are not actually referring the function which has been called. If it accesses the data members, it is basically accessing, that is inputting or displaying or using in the assignment statement. At that time it is accessing the data members of that particular object with which the function has been called. The first call was made with O1, so the apub input was that of O1 dot apub. Okay, the second call was made with O2, so if apub we are referring at that time, it is O2 dot apub. So what you can do is that you can do another way of understanding the thing. Once you are making suppose call with O3 and you are writing cin of apub, read this statement as cin of O3 dot apub. Okay, because you are calling the function at that time with O3, and if you are calling with O1 at that time, read the same statement as O1 dot apub. This is what I mean, that the object is the implied argument. You don't have to pass it to the member function, but this means that whenever you are accessing the data members of a particular class in a member function, whenever you are calling that member function with a particular object, you are actually referring to the data members of that object. This is what I meant by that object is the implied argument to a member function to which you are making the call with that particular object. This was the point, and this is the point here. A member function can access all private, protected and public members. Okay, but who will be calling the member function? Of course, some object, and with reference to that object at that time, that object with which a member function is accessed is the implicit argument to the member function. That means all the data members you are accessing at that time are the data members of that particular object. Okay, I hope this is clear. We have discussed this. I hope you have understood today's lecture. It is very interesting. I have to repeat some of these concepts again, and I know these are this is basically a new way of thinking. Once we move from C to C++, it is more of a rules than of a programming technique. But your accessibility, whether you are able to access a data member or a function member, that will be reported by the compiler itself, and the errors it will report will be relevant. If you are trying to access a private member or protected member, it will report an error. If you access a public member, it will not report an error. Now, accessibility to a particular data or member function will be done by some non-member function, and that non-member function can belong to the some other class, or it can belong to the function that is not a what you call member function of any class. This we have seen. Continue watching these videos if they are beneficial. Thank you.